Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. Some comic book films are just meant to be. If you're a fan of the show, first off, thank you. Second, you know that we've been down the road of conversation many times before about actors who were born to play certain parts. Many spring to mind. Of course, Downey is Iron Man. Obviously, if you're a Marvel fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson. There are a lot of others. You could argue Chris Evans is Captain America. I'll argue that. I'm sure we've done that here on the show. But in terms of comic book films, man, some of these things are just meant to be. Some are not. We've seen some that were ill-advised, to put it mildly, not just for the MCU, but also for what was the DC Extended Universe. More to come on that. That story's still unfolding with James Gunn. We'll see what happens in the future. Some of these flicks are just meant to be. The one we're talking about here today, absolutely meant to be. This movie had to be made. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to give it away right off the bat. Pound for pound, I believe Deadpool, honestly, is one of the best comic book films ever made. It's a bold statement. I know it's big. It's brash, perhaps. Not too brash. But it's how I feel. There's a lot of really, really good stuff in this flick. From the cast to the story to the gags. The dialogue is effing nuts. And yes, this flick's rated R. We're going to try to keep it clean if we can. But yeah, man, this flick, holy Lord, I haven't seen it in a hot minute. But again, I'm telling you, it's my hill today. Maybe not my hill to die on, but my hill to claim is Deadpool, one of the best comic book films of all time. I'm telling you, I just don't know how it can't be held in that regard. Let's get to this, kids, shall we? Deadpool is a 2016 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. Distributed by 20th Century Fox, it is a spin-off of the X-Men film series and its 8th installment overall. Directed by Tim Miller and written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, it stars a variety of actors, an ensemble cast, if you will, chief among them, Mr. Ryan Reynolds. And if you know this film, you know this character, you know exactly who that guy is. In this film, Wade Wilson, primary character, hunts the man who gave him mutant abilities and a scarred physical appearance, becoming the anti-hero, Deadpool. Of course. Based on the character created by Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza. Apologies for butchering that if I have. Total running time, 108 minutes. The budget for this film was $58 million. It may have made a few dollars, kids. Total box office, $782.8 million. And that is your lowdown on Deadpool. Phil, am I exaggerating when I call this pound for pound one of the best comic book films ever made? What say you? What's your take?
I definitely think it's on the list. I think it's in the upper echelon of all-time great comic book movies. Just the fact that it feels so genuine and so perfect for the character that it's creating. It doesn't ever feel like this is Deadpool in like some big budget blockbuster film. It feels like this is a Deadpool movie through and through. Like from the opening credits and everything about it, it just feels like it's just an ongoing gag that wouldn't have worked or been made for any other character.
Oh, dude, 100%. I love the way you put that, too. It doesn't feel like anything here has been set up. It feels like we've just stepped into this guy's world, right? It doesn't feel like it's been manufactured. It feels like this is just where he lives, right?
Yes, it just feels like this is I can't even say it's a standalone movie, but it just feels like it's its own thing. It feels like there's nothing else in this genre made like this.
Yeah, and man, rated R, freaking nuts. And we're going to talk a lot today, Phil, about what's coming up with Deadpool and Wolverine. I legit cannot wait for that. And I don't know if it's going to stand toe to toe with this in terms of how good that film is. I have a real hard time believing, Phil, that movie is going to either bomb or not live up to expectations because those two guys together, independently of each other, are fantastic. Together, I think it's just going to be insane. Let's talk about that a little bit here before we get started on this particular flick. So, when Hugh Jackman did Logan, which we've covered here in the archives, kids, episode 83, if you can believe that, Phil, March 15th, 2022. My God, that's freaking nuts to me. But yes, it's been that long, 2 years. But at the time, Phil, after Logan came out, great freaking movie. We reviewed it here. Excellent film, right? But like Jackman was asked many times after that, are you ever going to come back? Would you consider it? And he basically said, the only way I do it is for Ryan Reynolds. That's it. And Ryan starts dropping all this stuff on socials and teasing and whatnot. And of course, he's referenced here in this film because they're friends in real life. Could you have imagined, Phil, that movie was actually going to take place, or did you think it was just two friends having fun with each other online?
Yeah, the time when Deadpool was initially made, Deadpool was still Fox property. This was before the merger. Uh, this was before any possible idea of the X-Men being a part of the MCU. This is long before No Way Home and a wild world where you can have three Spider-Men from three totally different franchises in the same place. So I didn't believe this was possible at that time. But I think it just speaks to everything with this franchise because Deadpool shouldn't have happened. Like this movie that stayed in production hell for a long time, and you don't often get a chance to revisit a character with the same person that was cast in an absolutely atrocious depiction of him. Like going back to Wolverine Origins, that could have been the death of that character. That could have easily created this perception of the character with pop culture where we never got a chance to see him again. But that just goes to Ryan Reynolds' commitment to it, his unwavering commitment at several points to making this movie happen. And I like to think that the getting Logan here is a part of his commitment as well. If nothing else, like this, getting three movies out of this and getting all the way to the point of him working with his real life friend, like this is all Ryan Reynolds doing. Like, if nothing else, like he's owed a lot of flowers for this franchise.
Oh man, it doesn't happen without him, Phil. Honestly, I mean, to your point, he believed in the character so much, and in this little pocket universe of the X-Men franchise, that he was willing to put everything out there. I mean, had this movie tanked, I mean, it's funny to even think about that, man. But consider had this movie bombed. Like, what are we looking at years later? We certainly, I don't think, get Deadpool and Wolverine, do we?
No, and I mean, this was a risk. It's crazy to think about it, but this was a risk. You had Ryan Reynolds, a guy that was a leading man in his own superhero movie that tanked, and
Mm.
he was a part of a Wolverine movie that did not do well at all. And again, the version of Deadpool that was in that movie is so bad. Like it's so far off of what the character is. To go from that and to get this like very comic accurate version of him, it just seems like unreal. Like who would have guessed that after seeing Wolverine Origins that this would actually happen and Ryan would actually pull it off?
Can you think of another character off the top of your head who has been adapted as closely to the source material in the MCU as Deadpool has? I mean, that's tough, right? But I'm sitting here thinking Iron Man's very close. Captain America's very close. You know, but things were tweaked maybe here and there, but like
Yeah.
this is absolutely Deadpool, right? There's no question who this is.
Yeah, and I mean there are tweaks to Deadpool in this movie as well, but they're not as uh they're not as noticeable as tweaks to other characters that we've seen. Um as accurate. Uh She-Hulk's close. She-Hulk's close.
That's fair.
Um,
Man, there's so many characters they've done now. So
I mean, yeah, when I'm really thinking about it, that is this accurate. It's not that often, even because I feel like we always kind of accept compromises at this point now. It's like,
mm.
all right, well, these are things you had to do for an adaptation, and there are those things here as well with Deadpool, but there are less of them.
Yeah, good call. I mean, talking about how this movie got made, we also have to mention right off the bat that scene on the freeway where he jumps off the bridge and goes crashing into the sunroof of that car, and the fight breaks out. All of that was done digitally in the beginning. It was all CGI footage as test footage. And
Yes.
dude, do you remember seeing that? Because if I'm not mistaken, that was just put online with like little to no explanation of what we were looking at. I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking Deadpool. Who did this?
Yeah,
I mean, do you remember seeing that?
this was like the initial test for the movie, which
Mhm.
eventually became the initial preview for the movie. And I remember seeing it complete with everything, with the salt and pepper record and everything. I was like, "Oh, this is perfect." Like,
Mm.
I don't think you can get anything more perfect than this.
It's here's the good bit, kids. The animation company that did this is Blur Studios. That put this together, and it was a low six figure
Wow.
budget to produce some test footage, which is freaking nuts. But apparently, I think it was TJ Miller, or no, I'm sorry, Tim Miller that was behind this. But it was Blur Studio that did it in 2012. And this footage did not convince Fox to greenlight this film.
Yeah.
But what
Um,
did do it was the Avengers release. That's what did it.
yeah. I don't think that people would have been as on board for the movie without the test footage. I
Mm.
think the test footage popping up online and the reception to it was so good from both the comic book community, from fandom, and then from people outside of fandom. It was just such a cool thing. Like, even if you didn't know anything about Deadpool, it was just kind of like, oh, this is like radically different. What is this? Like, how
Mm.
can we get more of it?
Man, something that struck me, because I haven't seen this in a while, something that struck me right off the bat, as soon as this movie starts and characters begin talking, dude, the dialogue of this film is effing wonderful. Like the banter, the one-liners, they're quick, they're snappy. I mean, it's freaking great, man. I mean, I can't get over how well the dialogue is done in this flick and how nothing is left really hanging there. And when it's done for comedic effect. But
Yeah,
man, someone should be winning something for just the writing on this film alone, dude.
yeah. This is one of those movies where people like us that are like nerds like all our lives, people that like spend any time in comic book stores, spend any time around like kindred spirits in this space. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like message
Mhm.
boarders. You watch this movie and it's just like this is everything we never thought would ever happen on film. It's kind of like watching Scott Pilgrim for the first time, and it's just like, how was this thing that speaks to me in so many ways made? How did this happen? And it kind of has the same sensibilities as Scott Pilgrim in a lot of ways because it has a lot of the same Canadian humor.
Good call. Yeah. And Paul Wernick, as we mentioned, kids, who wrote this film along with Tim Miller, Wernick did write part two, and he is writing Deadpool and Wolverine. So at least we can expect a lot of this banter to keep going on, Phil. So that's a good thing. He also wrote Zombieland. Again, another film with great dialogue back and forth. So that's really good stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's you're right. Like the way this film exists, it can kind of stand alone from everything else. And like to your point, how did this thing get made? And it's so perfect in so many ways because it really is. And Phil, if you're not careful, amidst all the the naughty language and sexual innuendo that's happening here and gory violence, there are moments, Phil, when this film has heart and you don't expect it. But man, that's what it just makes it that much better for me, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that there are certain things in this movie that wouldn't have worked if it isn't as earnest and well intentioned. Um, and it just doesn't work without Ryan Reynolds. I think if anybody else played this role, they would have probably tried to ham it up too much. It's like imagining anybody else putting on the big bright yellow suit and putting on the green makeup and being the mask. Like nobody else could have done that other than Jim Carrey.
Mm. Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah. Ryan Reynolds, again, like you said, deserves all the flowers for making this happen. He's the perfect Deadpool. The fact that the guy's own brand of comedy is self-effacing and self-defecating at times, and that's just how he rolls, and that's what makes it so much funnier. Like Ryan Reynolds is not a bad-looking man, Phil, and
Yeah.
like sexiest man alive and all that crap, and they even put that in the film, which is even better.
Yeah. Yeah. It every time I've revisited Wolverine Origins, which isn't often, um, and I have watched it, I'm just like, how did they get this so wrong with Ryan? He was the right guy to play Deadpool in every way. How did they get this so wrong? How
So
did Fox
wrong,
do this?
man. Yeah, I mean, well, X3 happened, Phil,
Oh,
and
awful, awful movie.
awful movie. And the third film in the next X-Men franchise was equally not
Also,
great as well.
also not good. And then they made another one, which was even worse. Um,
Mm.
yeah. I still haven't seen that New Mutants movie. I keep saying I want to watch it just for a laugh, but I still haven't seen it.
I want to check it out. I haven't seen it either. I remember it was set to be released, and then COVID hit, so they had to pull it.
Yeah, it was one of those that they tried to hold on after the merger and put out one
Yeah.
last movie from the Fox franchise, and
Mm.
yeah, I don't know if it was worth it. Everything I've heard about that movie doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's really awesome either. It should be noted here that this film was released on February 12th, and a lot of the campaign was for Valentine's Day, which is freaking great. Oh, it's so great. I don't know, man. It's just one of those little quirky things that fit, and it's just freaking awesome. I mean, again, the dialogue in this movie is so good between characters, and the banter back and forth. I mean, T.J. Miller and Ryan Reynolds, all day long with these two guys. And you know what? Not to put any blemish on this before we really get started here, man, but T.J. Miller has not had wonderful things to say about Ryan Reynolds. Have you heard any of those sound bites through the years?
I have not.
Hmm. It's not often I read or hear anything negative about Ryan at all, but TJ's comments were not awesome. And I can't quote it off the top of my head because I don't remember, but I remember he was on a podcast or something. I'm like, I can't believe I'm hearing this. And like, he wasn't necessarily throwing anybody under the bus, but he just was not happy. So, kids, if you're interested, go look it up. Might be something that maybe you'd want to hear. Maybe you don't want to hear it. Who knows? But there's something about that guy, Phil. I love that guy so much. He's so funny. And he's perfect in this film, too, by the way. Really, really good. So, yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that. Well, again, we're talking about Ryan Reynolds, we're talking about Deadpool. Ryan is fantastic in this movie. Again, we know that Deadpool and Wolverine flick's coming out soon. Can't wait to catch that. And I have committed to not watching any more trailers because I do not want that film ruined. I have watched my last trailer. I think I watched the one they released like 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. I'm done watching trailers. I just want to see the movie now. So, his love interest in this film, Phil, Marina Baccarin as Vanessa. This girl is utterly fantastic. She looks the part. There's something about her that looks dangerous. She's got smoky eyes. I don't know how else to put it, but she's funny. She holds her own against Ryan Reynolds on the screen, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. But man, she is so good in this. Were you familiar with anything that she had done before this flick?
Um, of course, he's in the probably one of the best canceled shows of all time in Firefly.
Ah, there you
And in the movie Serenity that followed it.
go. Mm.
Both very, very good franchises. I know people don't have the most glowing things to say about Joss Whedon anymore, but that was always one of those things that the fans got behind, and it was just so good that I couldn't believe that it got canceled. Another one of those I can't believe Fox did this thing. So, um, but yeah, she was great in that. The drastically different role, of course. I've seen her in other things, of course. Very beautiful woman. But she's great in this because it's different. It's different than a lot of things she's done. She's not just like the love interest that is kind of mysterious and all these other things. There is aspects to that, but she brings so much else to this, whether it be humor, uh, and her chemistry with Ryan is so good. Like you really
Mm.
buy that they could be a couple.
Oh, so good. Yeah, dude, 100%. It does not feel like it's forced at all. I never got into Serenity, man. Sell me on that. Why has there always been such a positive buzz about that show?
It's just really good episodic sci-fi if that's what you're into. Um, they do a good job of like building this cast of characters. Put it to you this way: before Avengers was a thing, and wondering if who could take on this thing and juggle a cast of characters and get you interested in it. Uh Not surprising that Joss Whedon, the guy behind the Buffy franchise and this franchise and handling ensemble casts made it work.
Interesting. Dude, it's one of those things on my list of stuff to check out that I never have, but I still would like to. So maybe I'll get to it one of these days. It's also interesting to note, Phil, that she is married to Ben McKenzie. So she's got a DC Comics connection there as well. He was Commissioner Gordon in Gotham,
I
which I
feel like she had a role in Gotham, didn't she?
maybe she did. Um,
She did.
it's possible. I don't see anything listed, but that's not to say she didn't cameo at some point. She did voice Talia al Ghul in Son of Batman and Batman Bad Blood.
Like the Taylor Swift song?
No. Animated flicks. So, man, she's been working since 2001. She's had a pretty consistent career. She's got 3 things in the pipeline right now. She is going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine, of course, which is awesome.
Hmm.
She is playing Vanessa Carlisle here. You know, the scenes when they first meet up and then they go playing skee ball, which is awesome. And he's wanting to get that Voltron ring, which is great. Just so many little running gags that they have in this film. And of course, it's found out that he has this late stage cancer and he's not going to make it. And that's what causes him to go get this procedure done in the first place. But those two together, him trying everything he can to get back to her. And like by the end of this film, Phil, where didn't they say like 2 years had passed since he had disappeared?
Um,
I
oh,
believe that's what she said.
yeah, I think it's 2 years. I think you're right.
Man. So yeah. But yeah, she's really great here, man. The villain of this flick, Francis Freeman, also known as Ajax, and no, not the cleaning agent, Ajax. This is actually a character created by Joe Kelly and Walter A. McDaniel. He did first appear in Deadpool number 14. This is Ed Skrein, or possibly Ed Skrein. He's an English actor, filmmaker, and rapper. And his claim to fame, this is kind of how he came up. He was also in the Transporter Refueled, Alita Battle Angel, Midway, and some other projects. So he's still currently going as well. He reminds me, and I'm blanking on the actor's name that played Beast in the latest X-Men franchise.
Nicholas Holt.
Yeah, he kind of favors him to a degree. What did you think about Ed Skeen in this, or Screen in this film?
it's very interesting because Nicholas Holt might be shaving his head and being a villain in a movie very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think he's great here. I think he is very detestable. I think that he's very cold and uh, he fits the bill. He's a great he's a great foil for Ryan in a lot of ways because he's the exact opposite of him in a lot of ways. And some of the scenes where they're together, when uh, Wade is being tortured
Mm-hmm.
and Wade is trying his best to get under this guy's skin and he's just like not budging. And then ever so often you can see a little bit that he's like starting to annoy him. Uh, and his 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 response to being annoyed is not like, all right, well, I'm just gonna show like a normal person I'm gonna get annoyed. I'm annoyed. No, I'm just gonna be just even more evil and bitter and awful.
Mm. He's like, they take the stuff off his mouth. He's like, you got something in your teeth. Like, I've been wanting to tell you, it's kind of driving me crazy. And then he did it to him again at the last, like the worst possible time to do this stuff. But yeah, just mess with him so much. Yeah, I enjoyed him as the villain. I found it interesting. And look, I don't remember a lot of part 2 of Deadpool, which we'll have to cover here on the show. But did anybody deep dive on what exactly was the organization that was doing what they were doing? Did we find that out later on, or am I not remembering that?
I don't think we get a like. Do we ever get a name for the organization?
I don't think so.
You know, off top, I keep wanting to call it Weapon X, of course, because this is a very Weapon X thing to do.
It
But
is.
I don't think it's Weapon X. Trying to remember. I don't think we get a name for this organization.
Interesting. God, man, all the tech these guys are using. And I mean, the logistics of setting this stuff up to begin with and not being found out and all the stuff they have to work with, like someone's funding this at some level. I just don't know if we ever find out who. Crazy. It seems like it's a dangling plot line. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it'll be explored in part 3 with Wolverine and Deadpool. We'll just have to see. Um, but yeah, it's also something else that's worth mentioning here. We were talking about the bit with Ryan Reynolds uh, here. Of course, Wade Wilson. If we haven't mentioned, obviously Wade and Vanessa. There's that bit where they are winning tickets and playing skee ball, as we mentioned. There's a large stuffed dog wearing a Deadpool costume that's
Hmm.
hanging with the toys behind the counter, which I missed the first time around. And this is in reference to Dogpool, canine version of Deadpool from an alternate universe.
Which
So,
seems like we may get in the third movie.
oh my God, can you imagine? Freaking Dogpool, man.
Yeah, there's this excellent clip from the trailer of what looks like Dogpool licking Wade in the face, and Logan is behind him, like scowling, like he hates everything that's happening.
Oh, it's really good. I mean, I'm so here for it. I'm just here for everything they're going to do. I don't even care how over the top it is. I could care less. Doesn't matter to me. I'm here for all of it. So, TJ Miller, as we mentioned, is playing Weasel. Basically, there's this bar that this guy owns, and a bunch of mercenaries are hanging out in there. You know, ne'er do wells who come at a price, which is what Wade Wilson is doing in this movie before it becomes Deadpool. And it gets the name, of course, because up on the board above the bar, or behind the bar, I should say, there's a running Deadpool of who they think is going to get killed on whatever job they're out on. And which is how Deadpool gets his name. Again, I love TJ Miller, Phil. I don't know how familiar you are with his stuff away from this, but um, I really love this guy a lot. I think he's a great addition here. I enjoyed everything about this guy. What do you think about him and Reynolds working together here and how this character came off in the movie?
Very funny guy. He's been in numerous other comedy films, and he's got great comedic timing. He's got he's kind of got this great way of just kind of like saying something very matter of factly, and
Yeah.
it's funny every time he does it.
Oh, it's so good. It is so good that when he goes back to the bar and they're talking, man, that is some of the best stuff, some of the best dialogue I think I've ever heard.
He's
My
just like,
God.
yeah, you're definitely gonna die alone.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, do you like, he takes his host, like, do you like what you see? He's like, you look like if an avocado has sex with an older, more disgusting avocado.
The- but that's perfect example of what I mean of him saying, "Do you like what I see?" And he just like just goes, "No,
Yeah.
no."
Oh my God. And he's like, it wasn't regular sex either. It was hate effing, as if the one resented the other, you know? Oh my God. That's so good. Yeah, he said, that's what you should do is star in your own horror films. Cause you look like if Freddy Krueger, what is it? I'll keep it clean. Had relations with a topographical map of Utah. So what a line. What a great line. I like to think that he's throwing in his own dialogue in that bit. I would
I'm
hope
sure.
so.
I'm sure some of it is improv.
Yeah. Man, so freaking good, dude. But yeah, I really enjoyed him in this too. His stand-up act's really good. And he's done everything. Other things, of course, Cloverfield he was in. That was his debut in 2008. He also voiced a character in How to Train Your Dragon in the films.
Of course.
And was it Tough Nut Thorsten?
Hmm.
Yeah. He was also in Silicon Valley. Yeah. Transformers Age of Extinction, Big Hero 6, Office Christmas Party. When he pops up, I always enjoy him. Put it that way. I always enjoy the guy. I really like this guy a lot. Let's talk about somebody that we touched on before we hit the record button. Gina Carano as Angel Dust. Can't say I was fully familiar with this character, and not I don't know a lot about the character's backstory, but man, I know a little bit about that Gina Carano. Let me tell you, holy Lord, what? First of all, Phil, she's really good here. She's really good in The Mandalorian. Off camera, Phil, not so good.
Yeah. Yeah, she's good in this. She looks the part. She's intimidating. She's a great henchman character. Um, she doesn't get a lot of lines, but she delivers the lines she does get really well. She has a lot of charm and character to her. Um, and that's what we'll stop talking about Gina Carano.
Yeah, that's really all we got. Uh, no sense going down that rabbit hole. If you want to learn more about her, kids,
Yeah, I don't know.
feel free to.
I did enjoy her in this movie.
Yeah, she's good here. Just visit your local library or Google or both, and you'll find out stuff you may not want to know. So, and look, depending on where you guys lean politically, maybe you're fine with it. I don't know. Hope not. But hey, to each his own or her own, I suppose. Everybody's
Listen,
allowed to be wrong sometimes.
listen, man.
So,
Everybody has their right to freedom of speech.
sure.
Just know that sometimes there are very real consequences with you expressing your freedom of speech.
Yep. To quote the great Luther Campbell from Two Live Crew, freedom of speech. Just watch what you say. So there you go. I'm just saying. Yeah, like I said, say whatever you want, but there may be repercussions. Be prepared to face them. I don't think she was prepared, and she's still in denial to this day, which is all right, man. Whatever you want to do, I guess. Brianna Hildebrand as Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I knew nothing about this character, if I'm being honest, going into this flick. Not familiar at all. Created by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. First appeared in New X-Men number 115 in 2001. She's named after the song by Monster Magnet, of course. Belongs to a subspecies of humans called mutants. Oh no, it's the mutants, kids. Of course, we know that. Born with superhuman abilities, her appearance and powers are eventually altered in the comics to match her appearance in the Deadpool films. What do you think about this actress in this film playing Negasonic Teenage Warhead?
I think she's great. She doesn't speak a lot, but I just think just her, just her whole character is great. I think what she represents in the film is really cool, man. Just like, um, because I didn't, I know of the character, but I don't remember much of her in that X-Men run.
Mm.
But I know, but just like her in this movie, she's great. She's, she's of course in the second movie as well. But she's great. I love their relationship in this movie. Her and Wade's.
Yeah, because he's like, what was the line he gives? Oh, excuse me, like doing the being an adult and trying to save money. Oh, okay. Because like she's such a moody teenager, man.
Yeah, she does all of the. Oh, are you guys gonna go do like an early bird breakfast or something? He's like, yeah, because going out early in the day and saving money is a bad thing.
Right, that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got a 15-year-old at home. I'm telling you, they're all like this. I'm telling you, I'm too cool to be here. I'm much too hip for this. All you people are clowns. I'm over it. Man, I just don't remember being that kid. Maybe I was. Maybe I was. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask if I was that kid or not. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, most adults don't remember how annoying they were as kids. They don't think that that was a thing. But I kid you not, most of us were probably very annoying.
Hmm. Oh, I'm sure. Leslie Uggams in a role that no one ever thought they'd see her do is Blind Owl, and she is freaking great with the hair and everything, looking like Lieutenant Uhura from Star Trek. If I'm being honest, in her later years, man, it's such a quirky thing to have her in these movies, and for some reason it fits because Deadpool is nothing but quirky. Man, I freaking love how odd of a fit this is, and somehow it fits every time. What'd you think about Leslie Uggams here?
She's great. I love that they set the seeds of her in this movie saying she misses cocaine, and there's a cocaine bit in the trailer for the third movie already. Um, um, it's such a weird fit for this movie, but I think it's so perfect for what this movie represents. It's such different humor, and it's such a different thing from any other comic book movie. Um, so it's fine. I when you first watch it, it's just like, well, wait a minute. He's like living with this elderly blind black woman because of course, because it's Deadpool.
Oh my god! Oh, so good. They go to leave, and he tells her, I've how many kilos of cocaine he's hidden in the apartment next to the cure for blindness or whatever. Oh, good luck. Awesome. Yeah, this is actually a character, kids. And let's see a little bit more about this character. First appearance, Deadpool #1 in January '97.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Been around for a while. Lived with him in his house in San Francisco called the Dead Hut. And yeah, at first, the relationship with him was unclear, but over time, it would reveal itself as highly complex and bizarre. Well, you know what? That just about sums it up.
Yes.
Althea is her name. So there you go. And you know what? Freaking man, if anyone gets grief in the comic book community for years because of his perceived lack of skills, because he can't draw feet, right? It's always the word. And he's way too many pouches and the shoulders are too big, shoulder pads. That's that Rob Liefeld guy, man. Without him and Fabian, we don't get this character. So much props and respect to them, man, for this.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld is such a interesting figure in comic book fandom in the industry. Of course, he should be celebrated for a lot of his contributions. but he's also become like a running joke because of things like you said, like the pouches. Of course, the Captain America cover with the big
Terrible.
like hulking chest, and it looks incredibly out of proportion. Um, he's also he's also a character. Like like if you follow his Twitter account and you see like a lot of his interactions with fans online. You see a
Mhm.
lot of his stuff because he used to be on message boards, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but um, he's such a he's such a polarizing figure in the space. But he absolutely should be celebrated for his contributions to comic books.
Yeah, I mean, Deadpool, the character, thanks to the Clint Eastwood movie of the same name. Yeah, I mean, without Rob, none of this happens. And of course, we also given Fabian a shout out. They co-created the character, so important to note that. Hey, hey, kids, Tom Clark here, and did you know the very podcast you're listening to right now is available on boinkstudios.com. B-O-I-N-K, Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com. You know, when he got hot, when Deadpool got hot in the books, Phil, you remember this as a comic guy. There's no stopping him. Deadpool was an absolute runaway freight train. And it was before this movie even happened, dude. Like he was everywhere. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
Yes, yes. He was Wolverine before Wolverine had that span of years where he was showing up in a cameo in every book. He was
Mm,
everywhere. Before that, there were tons of Deadpool appearances everywhere. It was overboard.
it was overboard. It was too much. Overexposed, right? Um, you know what? Let me ask you this. My answer to this is going to be the writing, but maybe there's something else to it. You mentioned Jim Carrey earlier. Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is a funny flick, dude. I'm
Yes.
sorry, it is. Part two, ooh, uh, you could argue part two had way too much Jim Carrey. Much like Robin Williams, Phil, when you took the governor off and just let them go, you were running the risk of this is too much. Like, why has, in my opinion, anyway, Phil, I don't know how everybody else feels. Why is it in the Deadpool series that I don't know how to ask this? Like, do you think there's a governor on Ryan Reynolds, or do you think he knows exactly how to play it? Like, this Deadpool Wolverine flick, from every trailer we've seen, is chock full of stuff. And we haven't even seen probably a tenth of it yet.
Yes.
I mean, how does this, I don't know. You know what I'm getting at, right? How is this clicking along without it being too much, do you think?
Um, yeah, Ace Ventura is an objectively funny movie.
Yeah.
It is. It's great. Um, Second movie isn't as good, but it's still very funny. I still think of things like him walking in to that gala and going, "You must be the Monopoly man."
Yeah.
He punches him later in that scene. He's like, do not pass the go. Do not collect $200." Um, I think what it is because we got restrained Ryan Reynolds for so long. Even if you look at Green Lantern and how restrained he is in that, and as much of a highlight as he is as Wade Wilson in the Wolverine Origins movie, it's like it's the tip of the iceberg of what we could have gotten. And so I think once we finally got like unadulterated, unrestrained Ryan Reynolds, who's gonna tell him he's doing too much? It's like because this is what we wanted.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Cause we barely got him at all in Green Lantern. And I mean, I love that they threw that in here as well. I mean, dude, the opening credits of this film, we never mentioned, you know, all this. And by the way, when you first saw this in the theater, you know, you see them throwing in the Green Lantern reference. You see them throwing in the sexiest man alive in the opening intro, you know, the car crash and everything. And then how long did it take you before you realized, wait a minute, everything on the screen is utter chaos,
Yes.
especially the names that are on the screen?
Yes. Um, Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to throw in a Blade reference from Blade Trinity, which is also very, very bad movie.
Oh,
And that's also unrestrained Ryan Reynolds, and I think he doesn't work as well in that movie because it feels like everything around him doesn't fit. It feels like he's being this very over the top character in that movie, as opposed to being a very over the top movie character in this movie that's supposed to be chaotic.
that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it has to be the right mix, right? The writing has to be good. They have to know, what is defined as too much. I think having the same director on board for all three films is highly important because you get a cohesive narrative, cohesive voice behind the scenes that unifies everything together. I mean, I think that's got a lot to do with it, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, Deadpool is, for all intents and purposes, a walking Looney Tunes character. So
Yeah,
he gets a chance to just do whatever he wants here, and we all just kind of accept it because it's Deadpool.
yeah, yeah. He's Wile E. Coyote with a foul mouth. Honestly, absolutely ridiculous when he goes nuts on the bridge and starts punching Colossus. Like, this is not going to end well for you. What are we doing?
There's so many instances where he's doing all the mannerisms, and it's just so funny and it's so perfect. When he realizes he left his ammo bag and he has to only use 12 shots, and so he's getting all the different shots in. You see him like doing all these things, like um, the one guy's trying to mow him down with that machine gun, and he gets on the other side of the truck, and he's just laying there on the ground waiting for him. And he's like, "Up, somebody wasn't counting." Uh,
Yeah.
he comes back around the truck, and he's like doing a Michael Jackson dance, and then he gets shot in the ass, and it's just like, it just everything about it is just so great, man.
Right up Main Street. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah. And I also just don't think it works if we don't have years of Deadpool media, whether that be from cartoons or video games and comic books, for him to play off of. I mean, if you know anything about Deadpool, the first time he says anything about chimichangas in this thing, people are like probably popping for it.
Of course. Yeah, no doubt about it. That scene on the bridge, Phil, which feels like it takes 30 minutes on the bridge, but that was all shot in Vancouver, and the Canada the local government had allowed the production crew. They gave them like an hour at a time or 3 hours at a time, whatever the span was, for several days in a row. And instead of reporting like, the Deadpool production has shut down the bridge, it was more like Ryan Reynolds has shut down the bridge. So they're like working up there, and he's like, "Oh, great! Everyone's blaming me for this." That's good.
Yeah. It's just so many great things from that bridge scene. Like I said, him counting down how many bullets he's got left, and getting the culmination of it, of him shooting all three of those guys at the same time with the one bullet. Really, really cool stuff, but also all the humor around it is very, very funny. Um, I because the thing is, we see so many big budget action scenes at this point. We've seen so many like over the top cool superhero moments, and so for him to also be speaking to the audience while he's doing it, and it's all this humor around it, it makes it fresh and it makes it feel different.
Yeah, it does. There's familiar things here, but you're right. It feels different. Like you got Colossus and Negasonic, and you got the X Mansion, and you got a great cameo in part two, by the way.
Yes.
But you get the Blackbird here, and you get the familiar X doors opening. So it's familiar, but it's different at the same time. And the fact that Colossus is trying to get him to join. Is there any other X Men you think that signed off on Deadpool joining the X Men, or is this just Colossus doing this?
I think this is just Colossus trying to do this on his own, because I feel like this is something that Cyclops would yell at him for. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Uh, but this is also Francis in the scenes on the freeway is really underappreciated, because the way that he just like deadpans a lot of this stuff and just doesn't react to a lot of stuff that Deadpool is doing is utterly hilarious. When he pins him up against that wall with the katana, and he's just punching him, and he's just like not reacting at all, and Colossus is trying to get him to join the X-Men. At one point, he throws the hubcap at him and hits him clean in the face with it.
Yeah.
He does not react at all. It's so funny. Doesn't budge, nothing. He just sits there and keeps looking for it. It's so funny.
Because we found out his nerve endings are scorched, so he doesn't feel any pain at all.
Yeah. So he just has like this like very robotic look and just like this very cold, deadpan look on his face. And in the meantime, Deadpool is doing all this ridiculous stuff around him and to him, and he's just like not budging. It's so funny.
It's so good. I like how they worked in the little figure of Deadpool from the X-Men Origins film with the claws.
Yes.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Oh, it's really terrible. But again, that's Ryan for you, man. He'll throw all that stuff in. We mentioned Colossus, the voice actor as Stefan Kapic, which could be pronouncing that incorrectly. He's a Serbian actor, so the voice is not a put on, which is cool. It's like not an American guy trying to mimic a Russian accent. And of course, this is not the same character. Kids, if you know the original X-Men franchise, this is not Daniel Cudmore. And Miller at the time, the director, said he felt that version he described as the dude with shiny skin was not Colossus. He wanted the character to be 7.5 feet tall. So, what did you think about the depiction of Colossus in here? Did it work for you?
I think that's a lot of the charm of the Deadpool franchise, of them taking things from the Fox X-Men movies that were awful or underwhelming and putting a new coat of paint on them and making them as good as we hoped that they would be. Because Colossus here is very good. This feels like what I would think Colossus is. That's like very like very it's tough to say country because he's from rural Russia, and but he's like very kind of slow. I don't want to say dim-witted, but very slow on the uptick, but also very good intentioned. And he's kind of the perfect do-gooder to put next to Deadpool and him look around like, what are you talking about? Like, man, the scene where he realizes Francis escaped and he keeps looking back at the wall and looking at him. It's so funny.
Yeah, so good. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I really like Colossus here. I really like what they did with a bunch of the X characters that they actually got a chance to use here. Like, spoiler alert, the Juggernaut we actually get in the second movie, that is Juggernaut. I don't want to hear any of this terrible Juggernaut that we got in X3. That is Juggernaut.
100%. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and dude, not only did we get Colossus, not only did we get the X Mansion and the Blackbird, and we've got that connection to the X universe. Not only is he trying to recruit Deadpool in, we got freaking Stan Lee in this movie, dude. Like, what is going on? You know what I mean?
We did get Stan. We got references to the X-Men. We got a very funny breaking the fourth wall moment of him saying, "Hey, this is a really big mansion, but I only ever see you two guys. It's almost like there was only a budget for two of you."
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it's just so funny, so good. There's so many things here that he pokes fun at of the X-Men franchise, and it hits. Like when he's dragging Wade away, and he's saying, "Professor will know what to do," and he's saying, "Which one, McAvoy or Stewart?"
Yeah. Yeah, he's dragging. He's like, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." So he has to throw that in too, which is good. Yeah. I mean, again, man, we mentioned Liefeld. He's an MC in the strip club. We got freaking Stanley as the DJ in the strip club. I mean, I can't stop about that. It's too freaking beautiful. What a work of art that
Bro,
was.
that montage is probably one of the greatest superhero montages we've ever seen, of him going and hunting down all these people trying to find Francis, and he goes through the different iterations of his suit, and they've got that Deadpool music playing over it that is so funny. It doesn't sound like it's real. It sounds like it's like a spoof on like those 90s rap songs from a soundtrack that is
Yeah.
very very dated and self-referential. It's so funny. It almost reminds me. I don't know if you watch Key and Peele.
Oh yeah, it's been a while, but no, I've seen it. Yeah, for sure.
there's a sketch on Key and Peele where they do Ray Parker Jr. doing all of these outtakes of other songs he tried to make for other movies other than Ghostbusters, and
Wonderful.
very very funny. At one point, he's doing one he made for 12 Years a Slave, and he's like, "Who's a slave? I ain't no slave. 12 Years a Slave."
Oh my God.
Well, I don't know, for whatever reason, when I watched Deadpool today, I thought of that immediately.
That is freaking crazy, man. Yeah, that God that fits like crazy. I mean, I thought, honest to God, I thought it was Eminem. It sounds familiar. You know what I mean?
It fits very well because there's a lot of hip hop in this movie, whether it be DMX in the last act, Salt and Pepper, but also just like where Deadpool's origins are. Like, he's a big '90s character, and when you imagine, like, if there was a Deadpool movie at the time when Deadpool was at his hottest, they absolutely would have made this kind of song for the movie.
Oh my God. They so would have. I mean, this character, man, I think it's worth mentioning, Phil, that this character blew up in comic books, as we said. Kids, if you're not into comics, you can't appreciate.
Man,
Hopefully, we've got the point across to you. It was huge. And then Phil, he has a second birth. Like, the movies didn't make him popular. He was already there, and this thing revitalized the character after the fact.
he was such a relic of that time period, and if you didn't live through that time period, as a comic fan or a fan of a bunch of this kind of stuff in that era of like Ninja Turtles and all of the spin-offs and stuff that spun out, like, and Liefeld and all the pockets and everything, that era of Jim Lee's X-Men and um, things like Wildcats and everything from that era. He's such a
Mm,
relic from that time period. So when you watch this movie, you see certain things that are very 90s. It's like this fits. You can't make anything about this character without giving some kind of love to the '90s and where he came from.
yeah. You're right, man. A relic of his time for sure. But like this character now, Phil, I mean, this character now has unless Marvel just completely drops the ball with this character in the books. I mean, this character is probably gonna be a staple for years to come, don't you think?
Absolutely. Very influential character. When you look at what they've done with other comics, when you look at even like what DC has done over the last few years with Harley Quinn, there's
Mm,
no way you can't say that it wasn't in some ways influenced by Deadpool.
mm. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Didn't they have some sort of crossover between Deadpool and Harley Quinn somewhere?
I did they? I haven't seen it.
I don't know. Maybe it was a one shot. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be thinking of something else, but it seems like there was something where there was like a one shot like crossover. Like her and the Joker together are nothing compared to her and Deadpool together. My God in heaven, can you imagine? Freaking crazy. Yeah, I mean, the significance of this film is not lost on me. The fact that, like you said, this thing brought this character back in a big bad way, cemented this character. He was already there, but further cemented this character as, you know, he's just. It's easy to wear a Deadpool t-shirt, Phil. All you need is the face. It's all you need, and the sense of humor. The costume is freaking great. Can we mention how spot on the costume is? Like, it's not bright red. It shouldn't be bright red, but like, it looks freaking amazing, dude. I love it so much. It's awesome.
It's perfect. One of the best comic book costumes we've ever seen using an adaptation. I believe before we got Spider-Man in the Marvel universe, I believe Deadpool is the first to get the moving eyes to work on a costume. He's the first to get the animated eyes to work.
Interesting. Maybe so.
I think that he is because the first Spider-Man movie to do it, I believe, was Civil War, and this movie predates Civil War.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And that was all done. That's all effects. That's all effects done after the fact, which is crazy. I don't know what they're doing now, but at the time, they were like scanning Ryan Reynolds without the mask, doing lines, so they could get examples of what, what do his eyes do when he delivers certain lines? How does his jaw move? And so they could sort of bring that out in the mask that he's wearing. But they did a fantastic job, man.
Yeah, not the same. It's not the same movie in some ways. It's not the same depiction of Deadpool if you don't get that part of it right. As great as the costume is, without getting those little bits of emotive responses from his eyes, it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. Yeah, he can't. He doesn't emote without it. And kudos to Reynolds for keeping that thing on because, like, we see him a lot without it, but when he's Deadpool, he's Deadpool. That mask stays on most of the time, which I appreciate. Because we've seen other actors, that mask is gone as quick as they can take it off of them because they want you to be able to see the actor not covered up. But like Deadpool's whole shtick is he's covered from head to toe with no breathing room anywhere. Can you imagine how hot that thing must be, by the way?
Yeah, and I mean, not just the dedication to do that, but the dedication to also take a very good-looking guy and cover his entire face in prosthetics
Mm,
and also cover it with a full mask.
big time. Yeah, oh my God, for sure. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's quite shocking how comic book accurate this costume is. It is wild to me. I can't get over it. So good. We had to mention the cab driver, Dopinder, which is freaking great. I love this guy so much. Supposedly, it's based on someone that Ryan Reynolds knew. A really cool guy he knew in elementary school who died when he was hit by lightning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the character was meant to be a tribute to him.
Yeah. Very their their chemistry is also very good because again, it's kind of all of these people that are reacting to Deadpool and he's just kind of like doing all this wacky stuff around him and they're just kind of looking at him like, "Oh, okay." Like
Yeah.
it's so it's so funny. The first cab ride where he's telling him all this stuff and he's just talking to him like he's a normal person. He's like responding to all of this stuff he's doing like it's nothing. He crawls out of the back seat. It gets in the front seat. He's just looking around like, "Oh, okay." It's almost like he wanted to stand up for himself in that moment and say, "You're not supposed to do that." But then he's just like, okay, all right."
This is Karen Sony. And by the way, this guy in full costume, you're going to pick up your fare. And you're very polite to the guy, and you're like, he's in full costume with swords on his back, Phil. And you just let him get in your cab.
Yes. And all of this, everything that's going on in the scene, he's explaining like his personal life. He goes into his breakup with his girlfriend and all this other stuff. And all this is normal. You stop this cab ride, ask for your fare, and he just hops out like, "Yeah, sorry, don't have any money."
Yeah.
I give you a crisp high five though.
Yeah. Oh, and the story about the girl he's trying to win, but his cousin, who's a good looking guy, he's going to end up with the girl. And then you find out later he's got him in the trunk of the cab. It's so good.
Yeah, and he's that scene is so funny too when he's saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did this. I'm so disappointed in you. So proud of you."
Yeah.
Like, you've got to let him out of the truck. Kill him.
Yeah. You got to win her back. Kidnap her. It's awesome. Really, really good. By the way, did you know he is the voice of the Spider-Man in India in Across the Spider-Verse?
I did not know that, but that is awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. Makes me want to go back and watch that movie again just to hear him talk. That's really cool.
Really love that movie.
Yeah, this guy's been in a lot of stuff too, man. And since 2010, he was also in Ghostbusters in 2016. Yeah, Office Christmas Party. That movie's popped up a couple of times here. Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. So yeah, I assume he will be back. Yes, he'll be back for part 3, which is awesome.
Yeah. Hope we get a cameo.
Yeah, but it's like Blind Owl, man, where he's just you're not sure why he's there, but you know, in some way, and I don't know if this was ever said, Phil, but maybe the appeal of this is like Deadpool is ridiculous. The character is larger than life doesn't cut it. This guy is apart from the stuff that happens to him and the power, not powers, but the healing factor and the skills, he's ridiculous. Like the whole thing is crazy. He lives in a crazy universe, but then he's got normal people around him, which makes it even funnier that there's normal folks just walking around and barely acknowledging how crazy this guy is, man.
Yes. Um, yes, I think that grounds him in a lot of ways, and I think that makes some of this stuff A, even funnier,
Mm.
and B, it makes him even more likable, and it adds this charm to him because they do this thing straight away, where they set him up as a mercenary, but they also kind of let you know right away that he's this mercenary with a heart of gold.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it goes back to Vanessa. The relationship with him and Vanessa truly grounds the character, makes him want to keep living and keep fighting and come back for more. And then they're still together in part 2 and 3. I mean, I have the feeling that something's going to happen to her in part 3, and that's going to perhaps cause him to want to. Because I feel we assume there's multiverse stuff happening in this flick, and
Yes.
that's how he ends up crossing paths with Wolverine. Is that a fair guess? You think?
Well, if we get into the plot of Deadpool 2,
Mm.
um, doesn't she die in Deadpool 2 and he went back in time to get his girl back. And
See,
once
that's how fuzzy I am on that film. I don't remember any of that.
I believe that's the plot of Deadpool 2. He went back and well, he's in mourning for a lot of the movie, and then at the end of the movie, he uses the time travel device to go back and fix things and get his girl back.
Mm.
Um, but I assume that that's what's going to get him in trouble with the TVA, which we've seen in the trailers. Um, I think he's going to have to come to the conclusion that he can't have everything that he wants. I think that he has done damage to the multiverse or time by doing that.
Yeah, in a mid-credit sequence, which I totally forgot about,
Yep.
Negasonic and Yukio repair Cable's time-traveling device for Wade. He uses it to save the lives of Vanessa and Peter, as well as to kill both in an alternate version of Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds after he finishes reading his screenplay for Green Lantern.
I'm surprised you don't remember that because the entire time it's happening, it's got shares of if I can turn back time going over it.
I don't know how I've forgotten that. We're gonna have to do part 2, man. That cuts it. We're gonna have to do part 2.
So many funny things from that. Him shooting himself in the head when he's reading the Green Lantern screenplay.
Oh my god. The music. We mentioned that rap song. We mentioned the one you just talked about. Like we get Juice Newton in the beginning of this movie,
Yes.
which is a 80s stuff. And we also get Chicago in this movie. We get Neil Sedaka in this movie. I mean, the song selection is varied to say the least. But like again, Phil, it's quirky, and that's why it works for this guy.
Don't leave out Wham. Wham is a big part of this movie.
That's right. Wham! Got to say it right. Yeah, got to say it right. But holy Lord, man, we've got to do part 2. I can't believe how I've forgotten so much of that flick, man. Cable's in that movie, so there you go.
Yeah, another great Rob Liefeld creation.
Absolutely, yeah. And we get the post credits scene here, also of Deadpool when he's doing the Ferris Bueller bit, which is freaking great. And flat out says, "Oh, by the way, Cable's going to be in part 2." We're in the theater like, "Oh my god, he just said Cable!" Like it's so freaking great, man.
Yeah, he does several things here in the post credit scene. He references the Ferris Bueller scene, but then he also is saying, "Oh, what do you think? We had the budget to do a after credit scene? You guys waiting for this?" Basically, acting like this isn't a Marvel movie. But
Yeah.
now to get to get full circle of all of the things that he referenced that first movie is not, and the third movie is all of those things. The third movie is a Marvel movie. All of the references to Hugh Jackman in that movie, and then Hugh Jackman is in the third movie.
Dude, it's freaking nuts, man. Freaking nuts. Yeah. It's so cool how everything turned out. You know, it should be said here also, the budget for this film, as we said in the beginning, was only 58 million. Phil, you talk about a modest sum, especially for a comic book flick, 58 million, and it made $782 million. Like, phew, man, alive.
Yeah. I this has to be referenced in the third movie, but I think him in this movie saying that he had the Liam Neeson nightmare.
Yeah.
And he goes, he's got 3 movies. At some point, maybe you gotta decide that this guy's a bad father.
Yeah.
And so I hopefully that is referenced in the third movie. And somebody's like, you've got 3 of these movies, and it's all you trying to fix your own messes that you created. Maybe you might be bad at this.
That's really good. Yeah.
It should be Liam Neeson that says it. It should be Liam Neeson that plays a character that tells him maybe you're bad at this.
Yeah. Oh, man. Tie everything back up, man.
Yeah,
I'd be
which
here for that.
that would be great, and I'm sure Liam Neeson would be up for it because he's done some great comedy stuff recently. If you did not watch Atlanta and his cameo in Atlanta, one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Interesting. We talked about the Green Lantern stuff. Ryan has said Deadpool is the last comic book character he will ever portray, but he doesn't object to future Deadpool sequels and or cameos. So of course we know we're getting the third movie. Tom Clark 6M Podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you. Dude, how deep do you think this is going to go in the new... What phase are we in with the MCU now? Is it like 6 or 7, whatever the number is? How deep do you think this character is going to actually go into the MCU?
I'm not sure. I have to assume that, of course, we're going to get the third movie, but maybe they'll just use him in cameos here and there.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know, man. It'd be interesting to see how everybody else kind of reacts to him and stuff. I mean, imagine him and, the Tom Holland Spider-Man at the same dude. That would be fun.
There's a Spider-Man comic that I have, and the cover of it is Deadpool putting all of these patches and armor pieces on Spider-Man and saying, "Now your costumes, right?" And in this comic, they go back and forth and they're doing Yo Mama jokes. One of the greatest things ever.
Oh man, so good. Because I mean, Spider-Man is the sarcastic guy in the MCU, right? I mean, I don't know how close they've ever gotten to capturing that. I think maybe Garfield was better in terms of that, but like, if he really were to cut loose, people may say, well, he's basically doing Deadpool shtick without cursing. But I'm like, Spider-Man was doing that years before Deadpool was even created, man.
Yes. There are 2 characters that on screen Spider-Man, well, technically 5 characters that on screen Spider-Man has to interact with. First of all, yes, it's cool that he was in an Avengers movie, but he has to be in a Fantastic Four movie. It has to happen because I mean, like that's where he debuted next to the Fantastic Four. They've always felt like his second family. One of his best friends is Johnny Storm, and the way they play off each other, there's no if Tom Holland is not in Fantastic Four or they do not interact with each other and all, that is a colossal failure.
Mm.
And
Yeah, that's fair.
Deadpool is the other one. Outside of those 4, Deadpool is the other one. I would love to see him interact with Deadpool. Well, I guess technically 6. If we don't listen, man, I think it's great that we're getting this Deadpool movie. I think it's great that we've seen Kingpin and Echo and all these other things. Spider-Man and Kingpin have to interact.
Ooh. Yeah. Spider-Man, Daredevil, you know?
Yeah, I mean, well, we technically got the Daredevil cameo.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Uh, and that's the great thing about this is if we don't think of the movies as being movies, but we just think them as being a comic book arc, you know what I mean? Like then it takes on a whole different meaning, a whole different vibe. So instead of it being like standalone flicks, you just think of like Deadpool 1, 2, and 3 is just, it's three different comic book like story arcs, run by a team of like a writer and artist, whoever they are. But like that's how you're able to tell different stories, kids, in case you can't figure that out. That's how you're able to switch it up and do it whenever you want in storytelling because the source material is just crazy thick, man. Just there's just so much there to pull from.
Right.
Ryan Reynolds' full body makeup, in case you're wondering, took 8 hours to apply. Once it was on, he was not able to sit or lie down. So that's fun. Don't know how he stayed comfortable doing that stuff. He kept his Deadpool costume after filming had completed for this movie. He didn't ask to, nor did he give anyone the chance to take it from him. When 20th Century Fox found out, they just said, I'll let him keep it.
It's got. Listen, this thing wouldn't have happened without him. So
Yep.
he deserves his trophy. He deserves his head on the wall.
100%, yeah. Don't make the super suit green or animated, of course, is another reference to Green Lantern. Movie that never, you know what? Other than the gags that we get in the Deadpool films, there was no good reason for that movie to happen. I don't think it did anything for anybody.
That terrible, terrible movie.
Terrible movie.
Didn't he meet Blake Lively while making that movie, or did they meet each other before that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, guess that's one good thing that happened from that movie for him. He met his wife.
There you go. At around 15 minutes in the scenes where he is dealing with the stalker pizza guy, Wade is wearing a T-shirt with B. Arthur on it. This is a reference to the fact that in the comics, Deadpool has an affection for B. Arthur and the Golden Girls. According to Ryan Reynolds, it cost $10,000 to get approval to use the image, which went to charity.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. So, yeah, going deep on that, kids, going deep on it. Also, in the third act, I remember going to the theater, sitting there going, wait a minute. Is that a helicarrier? I think that's a helicarrier. And sure enough, Phil, it's a helicarrier. How soon did you put that together when you first saw this?
There were so many jokes at the expense of other things that happened throughout this movie that I think the first time I saw it, I didn't notice it, but the second time I was like, "Oh, the helicarrier crashing," and he's making fun of that as well. He does a lot of jokes at the expense of a lot of genre tropes. Of course, the superhero landing is something that became an ongoing joke from this, and there are a bunch of other things. The gratuitous cameo, um, the entire opening credit scene of it not actually being opening credits. It's all a gag and it's a joke on all of these things. Like, again, nobody else could make this movie. This wouldn't have worked for anyone else.
It's so awesome. I mean, everything just fits. This movie is so good. And I love that it's on Disney Plus. I mean, I don't know. Call it the kid in me or I don't know what to call it, but there's a comic book movie of a scene with implied, well, there's more than sexual innuendo happening between him and her in those scenes. And all the language, and you got DMX saying the N-word, and this movie exists on Disney Plus.
Yes.
So
many scenes where this movie should not be seen by kids. I mean, when he's sitting there and his hand is healing and he has like the baby hand, he's talking there and he's like, "Hurry up and get out of here. I bet it feels huge in his hand."
Oh my god. Oh, it's good. Or she's putting together that trying to put together that, was it a bookshelf or something? That
Yes.
cabinet, and the whole thing just collapses because she's blind, of course. Oh my god, so good. And they're arguing over the brand to buy. Through the whole movie, they're arguing about it. It's really good. It became the first R-rated movie to have a 3-day opening weekend of over $100 million at the U.S. box office. While such films as The Matrix Reloaded and The Passion of the Christ had earned well over $100 million by the end of their first full weekend of release, those movies had opened wide on the Wednesdays before the official opening weekend. Deadpool only had some 7 to 10 p.m. screenings before its Friday wide release. So there you go. When he mentioned that he looks like he was bitten by radioactive Sharpay, which is a great line, that's actually from one of the comics. Because in one of the comics, Deadpool states he looks like a cross between Ryan Reynolds and a Sharpay. So that's good. This film had a lower budget than any of the X-Men, Iron Man, Avengers, or Captain America movies. But you know what? Did it really feel like that to you?
No. I think that if you're really nitpicking about some of the CG in the movie, that it feels like it's less expensive than what we're used to, but it didn't bother me.
Mm. No, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel like there was anything that was. I mean, the locations where they shot all the action that happened, I didn't see anything that led me to believe that it wasn't money well spent. Everything felt fine to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, Ryan has said that this has been his favorite film of his own, as he got to improvise in several scenes. Um, which of course he does. He's Ryan freaking Reynolds. Are you kidding me? So there was, get this, there was going to be a running gag involving Wade and the other bar patrons betting money on how Amy Winehouse would die.
Oh,
Yep. This
oh,
was this was of course cut because Amy did actually die sometime after the script was written, making the joke both irrelevant and of course insensitive.
yeah. Glad that that did not make the cut.
Yeah. Man, it's so awesome. In the comics, I don't know if I knew this, but Vanessa is a shape-shifting mutant that goes by the alias of Copycat. And she homages her comic book version when she mentions that she has played a lot of roles. There you go. Did you know that she was based on a character from the books? I don't think I knew that.
I did not know that.
Interesting. And let's see, Deadpool's swords are named B and Arthur. I don't know if I knew that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, this is great, man. I just again, I enjoyed watching this so much. It's been a long time since I've seen it. A lot of it came back to me, and some of it I remembered, some of it I did not. Evidently, I've forgotten all of part two, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. We're definitely gonna have to tackle part three when it hits. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that flick. Um, yeah, this was actually Tim Miller's featured directorial debut, and turns out that guy knows a little something about how to do this. And good for him for staying on board and for keeping this thing together. God, man, I'm looking forward to part three so much, big time. Um, so, do you think? Well, it feels like Phil that this upcoming movie is going to really give the MCU the kick in the pants it's been needing for a while. Like, do you think they'll be able to capitalize on this? I mean, what do you think moving forward? Because you know, I'm I don't I'm always a fan of the MCU because I'm in the bag for this stuff for life. But like, I can see where some folks are frustrated with it. I totally get it. I mean, how much do you think this will really be a spark for that universe moving forward?
I think that they just need something that looks different than their usual movies, and I think that um that's what Deadpool was able to do with Fox. I mean, whether you hate or love a lot of Fox movies, they were able to give us a different depiction of superhero movies. They didn't
Mhm.
always hit, but it was different than the Marvel brand, and so I think that's going to help them to have something that can be a success for them that's different than their usual formula.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's true. There's man, I really think this is going to help that universe along. And if nothing else, it'll be like maybe reestablishing some goodwill for the fans. What do you think? I know this is kind of just going off topic here a little bit, but what do you think about all the rumors about the Ben Affleck Daredevil and all this other wacky stuff that we may or may not see? Like, how far down the rabbit hole you think they're going to actually go with this?
Yeah, I've seen some of that. I've seen some of the ideas of the surprise cameos. I kind of like that idea of them giving the Fox movies, all of them, not just the X-Men movies, but all of these Fox movies, this last hurrah on screen, because that was like a big part of the comic book boom. Again, regardless if I liked all of those movies, they were a big part of the stepping stones of what made the industry what they are today.
Mm. Yeah, that's fair. I'll be interested to see what happens. Seems like this multiverse stuff is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, I mean, if you give some of these guys one last chance to be on screen and some of these characters and do something cool, if any franchise represents what that could mean, it's this franchise because again, this could have never happened. We could have got that awful Deadpool that we got in X-Men Origins, and that could have been it. And so to give some of these people a second chance at playing these characters, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's a good way to, closure if anything else. And plus, it's fun for the fans. Like the stuff they did on the DCCW stuff with the Flash and all those shows. Like John Wesley Shipp's version of the Flash from the '90s series got a proper send off. That character went out heroically. They were able to put a button on that, and tie it up for fans. Like I love when stuff like that can happen, man. For fans who have been passionate about the source material and followed these projects for years and always been a fan and carried the banner for these companies over the years, man, they to be rewarded in such a fashion, that's the funnest, that's just the coolest thing ever, man.
Yeah. I think a lot of fans that were big fans of Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, they got their vindication. He got his moment on screen. He spoke a lot candidly about how disappointed he was that his franchise ended the way it did.
Mm,
So it's really cool to see him get his moment again in the sun in a very successful Spider-Man movie. And so if this movie's a success, I like the idea of a lot of those actors from the Fox movies getting their moment.
mm. Yeah, yeah, I'm okay with that.
It's crazy that we've now seen a lot of these things come full circle, and a lot of these guys from movies or series and things that weren't well received get to come back and kind of give their final bow. I think that's been really cool to see with Hayden Christensen as well, and how poorly the prequel trilogy was received, but getting to see him in Ahsoka and things like Obi-Wan and seeing the fans love to see him again and seeing him happy and out and about, it's been really cool.
Mm. Oh yeah, dude, I can't argue with that at all. They yeah, getting again, it's fan service if nothing else, which I'm here for. And I just appreciate when they go the extra mile to make the fans happy because Phil, you and I know this, but a lot of people out there tend to forget. None of this happens without the books. None of this happens without the creators, the writers, the artists, the inkers, everybody in between that puts these books together. None of these movies ever happen. Because there's no source material if they don't create to begin with. So, I'm always going to be a comic book fan first, comic book movie fan second. That's just how I roll, man.
Yeah.
So, um, I'll be interested to see what happens here. I'm not to keep harping on that, but I do want to see the MCU come back in a bit bad way. There was a story just came out a few days ago that Disney's talking about scaling back on the Marvel content. And when you have a film that features three female leads, it's going to get freaking butchered because that's the world we live in. Which doesn't have to happen, but it sure did. And that when you have a TV show streaming with a female lead, well, it's going to get butchered because again, that's the world we live in. I mean, there's just so much stuff. The photo of the new Superman sitting down, putting his boots on, is getting ripped to shreds, Phil. Like, I'm thinking it's a photo. What are we doing here that we're judging something that isn't even done yet? We're judging. Like, so anyway, I'd love to see the MCU come back in a big bad way, man. For sure.
I mean, when I see those kind of things, I just feel old at this point because I remember people seeing those first behind the scene pictures of the Iron Man armor and how people were complaining about that, and look how that turned out. So it's just like,
Yep.
guys, just wait and see what happens.
Yep. Remember the first photos of Captain Marvel in the green suit?
Yes, and how people were saying that's not what color the suit is. They got this all wrong. What are they doing?
And we're all like, wait a minute, that looks like it's Kree. Well, wait, that's the comic. That's fine. Yeah. Freaking nuts, man. Like, but again, bunch of know-it-alls, man. Everybody on social media is a freaking genius. Didn't you know that? I'm telling you.
Everybody online can do your job better than you do your job.
Oh, yeah.
We've quickly figured that out. Everybody online thinks they're an expert on everything.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, well, kids, I think that may wrap us up here for this little Wolverine flick. Excuse me, Deadpool flick. I'm still thinking about the new movie. So, yeah, again, we set out on the show to cover the stuff we want to talk about when we want to talk about it. This movie's been out for several years. We've just never covered it. Now we can say we've covered it. We will definitely hit part 2. And of course, yes, we'll hit part 3 as well. Again, I've said before here on the program that we don't necessarily go in order, and I don't really number these episodes. I number them in the liner notes in the show description, but I don't episode them in the episode titles. I don't number them there because I don't want to. Because you should be able to just listen to whenever you want to and check it out, and you can dive in wherever you want to, and hopefully enjoy the episode that's in front of you, which hopefully you're doing with this one. So, yeah, keep your eyes open for part 2, kids. We'll be bringing that to you probably sooner rather than later. So, Phil, let's try to take this home. Give me your last word on Deadpool.
Definitely going to go down as one of the best comic book movies we've ever seen. A fresh approach to the genre at a time where I think we needed something different. I just think the story of Ryan Reynolds being committed and dedicated to this franchise is something we've never seen any actor do. And that alone makes this such a great success story.
Yeah, for sure. There's been very few actors, I think, that have had this level of dedication to a character, and to getting the project off the ground to begin with. Like, like we said from the beginning here, folks, like this movie does not happen, number one, without Fabian and Rob for sure, but number 2, without Ryan. This doesn't happen. So,
yeah,
kudos to them. Thoroughly enjoyed part 2. I think part 3 is going to, honestly, outperform both of these films.
it probably will.
Does it do $1 billion, you think?
I don't know, but just thinking full circle, like I said, of everything in this movie and how Hugh Jackman is referenced so much in this, and what he managed to do for the Deadpool character, and the fact that he's going to be the one that gets Hugh Jackman in the yellow tights.
Right.
What a run. What a run for this guy. What a run for this franchise.
Crazy. I hope we get the brown also. I would like to see the brown in the flick.
Yeah, that was another one. Remember when people were upset because he had sleeves, and then we got a second trailer and he doesn't have sleeves again? Just, I don't know. Not the theories, guys.
Yeah, nothing is really. And the stuff that people should be getting upset about, they don't. But they'll get upset over a movie, which doesn't really matter, because if they screw it up, who cares? Like, not the end of the world. But I do not think they'll screw up the next one. But time will tell, kids. Our review of that film may not be awesome. Hey, look, anything can happen. Who knows? But I think safe bet to say that we'll be fine. But we shall see, right? That's how these things go. But in the meantime, that is Deadpool. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.